So, Mark and Peggy Rutledge, we're so glad that you guys were able to come back in town for a little while for Abby's graduation, and it will be great to just catch up a little bit and hear how things are going and what some of your future plans are in the ministry there in Mexico. So, for folks who haven't maybe heard or caught up, tell us what you've been doing the last several months.
Okay. Well, first of all, we're glad to be here too, and it's always exciting to come and visit with Winfrey and see what's going on here. But what we've been doing the past few months is studying Spanish and negotiating that with all the other languages that we have in our head, and dealing with the conflicts in words that are spelled the same but are pronounced differently. And so it's been a challenge, but according to our evaluators, we have done exceedingly well, especially Peggy.
Well, good. So you finished language school, and now you're, it just happened to be right here at the time of this travel, right at the cusp between language school and settling into the ministry there. So tell us where it is that you're going and what the big purpose is.
Well, we have moved to Tapachula, which is a city on the southern border of Mexico, right near the Guatemala border. It's about the size of Richmond, and we'll be working with the migrants there. There's a group of Mexican pastors that are ministering to the migrants. There's 4 different churches that have Haitian groups in their churches that are worshiping, and 2 of the churches, the pastor's daughters are involved in children's ministries. There's a ministry of New Hope, which is a trauma healing ministry that's just getting ready to start. So there's a lot going on there.
Sure. So how have these migrants, refugees, how have they ended up there?
Well, it's just on the road headed north. And so basically coming through Guatemala, and they're coming from Chile, from Brazil, and then the Central American countries like Nicaragua, El Salvador, and places like that. And basically they're being channeled on the roads up to a river that separates Mexico from Guatemala. And so it just is a natural channel for them to come across. Plus, there's lots of rafts that go back and forth all during, 24 hours a day. During the day, people from Guatemala come over to buy things in Mexico and then go back later on with the products they buy. They bring products from Guatemala over on the other side. And so it just goes back and forth in just huge inner tubes with wooden platforms on top, and guys push with a pole across the river back and forth all day, and it just all down the river it's that way. And then there's of course the legal ways that go across with the road, and a lot of people come into the area also from Guatemala to buy things and for medical care, which we found out was very interesting. But that's just a choke point coming in. It's flat, the mountains are to the east, and so it becomes an easy place to cross into Mexico and come up. And it's on the Pan American Highway, or the one that runs all the way down through there. So it's the main road through.
So these are people who are on their way headed north, headed what they hope eventually to access to the United States. So how long are they in this area? Tell me about that kind of process.
Well, usually they come across, and in the past it's been shorter. It's been like 3 to 4 months. But most recently, with the number of people that are coming across increasing so rapidly, that it's taking 9 months now for people to process their paperwork there. And then once they get their paperwork from the Mexican government, then they can continue on their road north. But they're pretty much stuck in Tapachula until they get that paperwork processed.
Wow. So if they're there for months, when we were talking earlier, you said maybe perhaps 9 months would be fairly common. What are they doing for 9 months? Because I'm going to imagine they have some needs.
Yeah, it's a big problem because housing and being able to eat, and they can't work until they have papers. So they have to totally depend on things that their family, resources that their family sends them, or resources that they get from other places. This is one of the reasons why several of the churches have food distribution programs. And there's several organizations that do shelters.
Okay. So I'm sure that number is in constant flux, but what's a ballpark number of Haitians that we're talking about, do you think? I'm sure it's a little hard to get count, but...
Well, I didn't hear any, let's see, probably upwards of 10,000 probably at the peaks, and then it just ebbs and flows.
Sure.
But there's, who knows, 1,000 or so, and basically what they're looking at is the number of people in the street, is how they estimate. Wow. So the higher the number is, the more people you'll find in the park that are Haitian, and as they move north, then the amounts will decrease. The amount of people that come to the worship services or Bible studies that are Haitians then will fluctuate with that also.
Okay. So when you say in a park, at least in my mind, I'm kind of conjuring up a typical image of a refugee camp, either official or unofficial, with people just kind of camped out.
Well, people are basically sitting in the park. They have what they have with them on their back in a backpack or something like that. It may be a family, and they're just sitting on the walls or the benches in the park. The nice thing about Tapachula is there are many parks in the city, so they can be spread out in different areas. And then you see a lot of people walking between places. So the parks become distribution points for certain types of help that we don't particularly understand all the types of help yet, but sometimes it's for jobs that they're day labor type things, and so there'll be meeting points. So the parks are used quite frequently for all types of things, and so it's just a gathering point for people. And then there's also a market for migrants where you can legally sell things in this migrant market in the city, and so it's another place to gather. And then a lot of the people sell things by having a wheelbarrow, and you put your things in it that you can roll around, and it's totally mobile, and move from place to place and sell like colas and water and things like that. And some of the guys are doing pretty good. I spoke with one man who said he was able to take care of his wife, himself, and his 2 children by the things that he was able to sell from his wheelbarrow while they were there.
So you mentioned something about a hope ministry. Tell us about that and what you hope is going to unfold there.
Well, it's New Hope. Is a Bible study, and it's geared at trauma healing. So it uses Bible stories and then Bible studies then to deal with people's traumas, and it's to help them kind of face the things that they've experienced, and to be able to share those and express those. And so the very first story that they deal with is Joseph. Because of Joseph, what happened to him with his brothers and what he went through and how God used it for good. And so that's the very first story that they deal with. And it's really encouraging, because a lot of people that have gone through these horrendous experiences on this journey, especially as they go through the Darien Gap, they really have to process those in order to be able to really continue on and find the Lord. And so it's a process of guiding them through their trauma, and that God has never forgotten them in this. Kind of what we were talking about the other day in church. So it's just a very good way to help them walk through this process to hear the gospel. So it's really exciting to see how it's changing people. And it's interesting because it's been used with the migrants, but we've also trained the pastors in this in Spanish. And right now I'm working on a Creole translation to use with the Haitians. But we've also seen a lot of people who haven't done the migrant route still have had trauma in their life. So it's been really fascinating to see how many of the church people that we have trained to use this, how it's affected their lives too. So we're really excited about the new hope it's bringing.
Wow, that's wonderful. So how about Christian leaders among the Haitians that are there? Are you finding some? Are you having to kind of develop some? Or?
Well, there are Christian leaders that are coming that have been trained at different levels. And of course, that's going to change with the population moving in and out. And so right now, I'm aware of at least one person who's had training who is working with Haitians in one of the churches. But in others of the churches, they're looking for leaders either to come up or to be shared responsibility among the community that's there in the church. So they're looking for that, and so that's a big part of it.
I'm sure. All right, so how can we pray for you guys as you head back and launch into the little bit of the unknown, little bit of known?
Well, I think one is that we will have discernment about all different kinds of things, because it's a new environment. We have lots of experience working with Haitians, but it's a new situation that we're working in that we've never worked in this way before. And so just discernment to move in the Lord's direction, at the Lord's timing, and to use our time and resources well through this process in identifying people and how to use our time, because there's more needs than there are hours, and how to use that well, do that well.
I think that also the whole language thing, because right now we're working with Spanish and we're trying to do the Creole and English and then French and everything else. So it's all kind of gets all gobbledygook mixed up sometimes. And the Haitians think it's hysterically funny, and they laugh at us and we laugh back, but they do it too. And that's why they're laughing, because they understand, because they mix their Spanish and their Haitian Creole too. So it's been fun. And it's almost an icebreaker with them, that they can laugh with you at it. But just that we would continue to develop linguistically and be able to communicate with the Mexican pastors and the people in the churches that we're working with and the people around us, and that our languages would not get totally tangled up, but would be able to untangle a little bit.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for taking time, and so glad you got maybe this little respite and come back and visit family, visit your mom, and certainly know you're going to continue to be in our thoughts and our prayers and our support. So
Thank you.
Thank you.